When we've done all that, we're going to deploy the service. We're going to go to the Azure portal. We're going to go to Cloud Services. We're going to select the service that we created earlier on. We're going to click the dashboard, and then we're going to upload a new staging deployment. Okay, we can give it a label, and we're going to choose a package and a configuration from local, and we specify the split merge service CSPK file and the configuration file that we've just configured. Okay, ensure the checkbox label deploy even when one or more roles contain a single instance is checked. Hit the check button at the bottom right and click on create. This will take a little while to create, but when it's created, you can then go to your cloud service, and on the overview pane you will see we have got a URL. We can copy that URL, paste it into a new browser window, and if it's all set up properly, we should see a screen that looks something similar to this. So I'm going to use the PowerShell script split toy store shard to make a call to my new cloud app to run the split for me. It asks for a few parameters such as server names, database names, shard map manager and the like. It logs me in automatically using the JSON profile I saved earlier on. And then it makes a split request to the cloud app that I'm going to provide as a parameter. So I'm going to click OK to that. The resource group is Toy Store RG. The SQL server is Toy Store SQL. The username is SQL admin. The password is my very secure password. The split merge database is called split merge. The service endpoint, if I go back to the portal, is this one. And we know that's working, so I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste it into my parameter. The shard map manager database name is Toy Store SMM. This is Toy Store Shard 200. I'm just going to double check that, make sure I've got the right one. Toy Store Shard 200, yep, that's correct. Shard map name, I think, is Toy Store Range. Toy Store Range map. I'm going to paste that in there as well. Low range is 1, high range is 200, the split value is 100. And it will do the split for you, and we'll get some progress on the screen there. And according to the PowerShell, our request has been processed successfully. The last thing to do is just to verify the split. So I've got this same query here that I'm going to run against, firstly, my shard1 database and then my shard2 database, and I'm just selecting the database name and then doing a count of all rows from the sales customer table. If I execute that, you can see there in the shard1 database, which is range 1 to 100, I have 100 rows. If I run the same query on the shard2 database, execute that query, you can see I've got 100 rows there. And then this final query is against the Toy Store SMM database, where I'm doing a join on a few of the tables here, and it should give me the range of the key values across the shard databases. And you can see there in shard1, the low key range is 0, the high key range is 100, and then in shard2, our low key range starts at 100 and goes up to 200. So the splitters work perfectly, and we've got our database sharded and our data split between the two shards. In the final step, we'll use elastic queries and cross-database queries to query the sharded tables across the shards as a single table. So we get all our data from our various different sharded databases into a single table. Now, in order to do this, I've connected in Management Studio to my Azure SQL Server, and I've created a new database called Toy Store Reporting. Once the database has been provisioned, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to create a master key encryption password, and I'm going to say this to be the packed at pub2 password you can see here, and I'm going to execute that against my Toy Store Reporting database. Command completed successfully. Okay, and then I'm going to create a database scoped credential. Okay, so it's just create database scope credential. Mine's called Toy Store Creds1 with identity, and I'm using my SQL admin and my secure password. So let's execute this. Command completed successfully. The next step, I'm going to create an external data source, which is essentially the connection details or the connection string of the external data source. Now, in our case, the external data source is the Shard Map Manager database. If I just adjust my screen a little bit here and make this bigger. So we're creating an external data source. We're calling it Toy Store Data Source with, and then we've got a type, Shard Map Manager. I need to change the name of my server. The database is the same. We're going to use the credentials I've just created, and it's Toy Store Range Map is the name of the range map. So I'm going to execute that script. The specified credential cannot be found. Oh, that's because I called it creds1 there. So let me change the creds name, the script there, and execute. Command completed successfully. Now, what that query did, it created an external data source called Toy Store Data Source of type Shard Map Manager. This connects to the Shard Map Manager database called Toy Store SMM using the Toy Store credential we created. Okay, the Shard Map name in the external data source will resolve the individual shards to get data from them. So it'll allow us to get data from across our sharded data set. Now, data for the external table isn't saved in that database. Okay, it's kind of like a pointer to where the data actually lives. And we didn't specify individual shards as the external data source because that would just return data of the individual shards we pointed at. We wanted to get the total data across our sharded application data set. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to create the customers table in the Toy Store Reporting database. Okay, now the table here is created with the create external table keyword, as you can see. Just highlight that before I highlight the whole lot. And it also references the Toy Store data source created in the previous step, which you can see there. So I'm now going to execute my create external table statement. Completed successfully. So if I go into my Toy Store Reporting database, expand tables, look at external tables, we can see I have my customers table in there. Now, this customers table, it's an external table, as you can see from the Management Studio screenshot there. It gets data from the Toy Store external data source we created in the previous step. Now, the distribution parameter specifies how the data is distributed for this table. Now, in our case, our table is horizontally partitioned, hence the distribution used is sharded with customer ID, which is our sharding key. Okay, Other available distributions include replicated. This means each database has an identical copy of the table. Round robin. This means the table is horizontally partitioned with a partition logic specified in the application tier. Okay, and the sharding method that we discussed earlier. So then we can test our query and we can run a select from our customer's external table. If I click on execute, query goes away and will return data for us. And we get all 200 rows returned. So the database engine uses the information that we specified in our toy store data source, external data source, to connect and return data from all of the shards. And we can verify that our database sharding has been set up correctly.